Work and train like someone is learning from you. You know, there is a quote that has the power to shape how we show up every day. And it says that it's trained like someone is learning from you. At first, it sounds simple, but the more you think about it, the more you realize how deeply it touches our habits, our character, and our daily decisions. Especially in a world where most people only see the final results, not the journey behind them. We live in a time when visibility often feels more valuable than actual work. But the truth is this: even when no one claps, observes, or praises what we do, someone somewhere could be drawing strength, courage, or direction from the way we move. And that's the heart of this message. The real struggle behind the scenes. Some martial artists today quietly carry a lot of stuff on their shoulders. There's the pressure to perform, show progress, and stay consistent. Even energy is low or motivation is missing. Sometimes you train and work hard, deliver well, and still wonder if anyone notices. Sometimes you're trying to be better. You feel like you're moving slowly. Sometimes, you're rebuilding confidence, after a mistake or a setback, hoping no one is judging your process. And other times you look around and it seems like everybody else is advancing faster, shining brighter, carrying the bag or whatever you want to call it, receiving more recognition. And it can be discouraging. It can make you question whether your effort is even worth it. You may even think, does any of this matter? And am I even making an impact? But here's the truth. We often forget. Impact is not always public, but it's always real. Someone's watching how you handle challenges. Someone is watching how you treat others. Someone is watching, and admires your discipline. Even if they never say it, someone is inspired by how you keep going despite your own doubts. Your work, your effort, your attitude, your discipline is teaching someone something. Even in silence, you are influencing. There's a shift in, you got to have a shift in perspective. When you begin to work with the mindset that your actions are teaching someone, everything changes. And I know I'm preaching to the choir some. Suddenly you hold yourself to a higher standard, not out of pressure, but out of purpose. You stop seeing your work, as small or ordinary, and you start seeing it as a ripple that can move beyond your own world. You start taking pride in showing up with integrity, even when no one is even watching you. You begin to value consistency, effort and patience and growth. Something inside you straightens out. And not because you are trying to impress or, shine, but because you are trying to contribute. It becomes less about performing and more about demonstrating. Less about showing results and more about shaping the path. Less about perfection and more about being an example of resilience. And when you think this way, ordinary tasks, they suddenly become meaningful. That pressure to be seen sometimes becomes lighter. The responsibility to do your best becomes fulfilling because now you understand someone is learning from your journey, your progress, your mistakes, your recovery, your persistence. So while your work matters more than you think about a moment when you admired someone, not because they were perfect, because they were consistent. Think about someone whose courage encouraged you, someone whose growth reminded you that you too can grow, someone whose discipline made you believe that small actions matter. Sometimes these people didn't even know you existed. They didn't know that you were inspiring you. They didn't know you were watching their effort, learning from their consistency, or borrowing strength from their story. Now imagine someone seeing you the same way. That is why your work matters. That is why your effort matters. That is why the way you carry yourself matters. That internal dialogue, rarely say out loud. There are moments when you pause in the middle of your whole work and you think, man, I hope I'm doing enough. Man, I feel tired today, but I need to keep showing up. I'm trying to be patient with myself. Even though I want results now, I'm trying to grow into the person I know I can be. These thoughts, though quiet, are part of your learning journey. And believe it or not, someone, maybe a junior colleague, a child, a friend, a teammate, a friend, or even a silent observer online, may be watching you push through all these internal battles. They may not know your story, but they can see your consistency. They may not see your struggles, but they can feel your commitment. They might not even, hear your doubts, but they can see your growth. This is how influence works. This is how leadership begins, quietly, consistently, authentically. But here's a gentle reminder we all need. When you work like someone is learning from you, you start to give more attention to the things that truly matter. How you speak to people, how you recover from failure, how you manage stress, how you treat your work, how you train, how you handle success, how you stay humble, how you grow. These lessons people remember. Not your position or your title, but your example. And here's something powerful. You don't need a leadership role. You don't need that none of that junk. You just don't need a higher title to inspire. You don't even need the spotlight to influence. You only need to live and work with intention. There comes a moment in your own routine when you realize someone is paying attention to me in your habits. Maybe it's someone who asks how you stay organized. Someone says how you train. Someone knows you never give up, on a project or your workout. It quietly says, I admire you, how you handle pressure. And you think, I didn't even know I was teaching anyone anything. But that is the beauty. You teach by how you live, not by what you announce. Real influence is quiet. Real leadership is consistent. Real impact is felt, not forced. How this mindset changes your workday? Here's what starts to happen. When you operate with this mindset, number one, you take more ownership. Your standards rise, not because others expect it, but because someone may be modeling their behavior after yours. Number two, you become more intentional. You start asking yourself, if someone did what I'm doing, would it help? Would it help them grow? Number three, you build a reputation of reliability. People trust that you're going to show up consistently, not those who only perform when watched. Number four, you grow without waiting for motivation. You stop relying on external approval and start acting from inner peace and purpose. You inspire without speaking. Your work ethic begins to communicate the message on its own. When it feels hard to keep going, there'll be days when you don't feel like being an example of anything. Days when you feel tired, discouraged, overwhelmed. Days when your work feels invisible or thankless. But these are the days influence is born. These are the days resilience is formed. These are the days someone might be learning from you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're human and you're still choosing to show up. Peace and have a purposeful